welcome to What Shall We Say to These Things.
This is a side conversation, and I'm TJ.
Yes, I'm MJ, and we won't be talking about something interesting. It's we were originally going to talk about why we think millennials, well, young people, Gen X to millennials, and maybe borderline Gen Zs, are leaving organized religion. But then we realized that we don't have the what's the word? We're not qualified to talk about that. We could talk about why we're finding it difficult to remain in our organized religion, because like we are the experts on this topic. Yes. But I will let TJ take over because like she's been experiencing this longer than I have. Mine is a recent frustration and exasperation. So
where do I begin? Okay, so like we our parents, most of our father, right? You cut him open and you bleed organization. Like, this is something he's truly passionate about. Like, particularly the denomination we belong to. He believes in it. Like,
yeah, he's the advocate. You know, the there's another word. Not advocate. It's like the person who stands up and defends. I don't know, but yeah, he's that person.
Yeah. And so our experiences, our life experiences, have more or less revolved around the systems within the organization. So I was born in a hospital that belonged to our religious organization. From primary up to my first degree was all within the organization's educational system. My first experience in education outside of the system was when I went to do my master's. And by that time I was like 23, 24.
Okay.
So for like the first 21 years of my life, and like prior to from the time I was born until I was about, let's say, 10, we always lived on compounds that belonged to the organization.
Okay.
So like my friends were other workers' kids. Should I mention that? Did I say that he worked for the organization?
I know we haven't said that.
Yeah, he used to work for the organization. And so like my friends were the other workers' children. These were also people I used to go to school with. We were not necessarily in the same class, but we went to the same schools. And so while I may not be as conservative as MJ is, like the scope of my life, my worldview has largely been, for the greater part, shaped and molded by my experiences within the organization. And therein lies the problem, right? Because particularly when I went to do my bachelor's degree, I began to have very, very negative experiences with, and I want to make the distinction here, because within our particular denomination, they make the differentiation between the organization and the church. I started having issues with both.
Okay.
And I think in terms of the education system, because we went to the same school to do our bachelor's degree, you possibly had worse experiences than me when it came to like personal experiences.
Oh, okay.
Right? In terms of having to interact. I didn't used to interact with people. Right? And so leaving university, I left with a very, very shaky relationship with God, for starters. Which was ironic coming out of a religious school, where like religious courses were mandatory. I left with a very, very shaky relationship with God. I held a very, very cynical view of the organization, not its belief systems.
No.
Because even as I am on the verge of being ready to leave the organization and like denounce all association with the organization, I still maintain the belief system.
But they can't beat that out of you.
They could try. Yeah. But like these were the things that I left one of our organizations with: a poor relationship with God, a very, very cynical view of the organization. And then I came back home and I began having issues with the church, because here I was, this young woman who had just come from a very youth-centric church, right? Where there were, while like a lot of the programs were not tailored, but there were still programs in place for young people, like,
and a large percentage of them were by young people as well, and I think that's what's significant.
Yeah. So even when it was not like, even when we were not the target audience, just seeing that the program is being led out by other young people, there was still some kind of connection. So I came back home and
struggled
for more than one reason, right? One, there were no programs catered to me as a young person. But that may have very well been because there were no young people left for them to cater to, right? And so there was nobody for me to have any connections or fellowship with to start with. Granted, like, I have social issues. Like, I don't make friends. Like, I've had the same like 2-3 friends for the last 20 years. So I have issues. So like, I can't blame them directly for my lack of fellowship. However, there was also at that point nobody my age, also at my place in life, left. Because the only other person who was my age and my place in life had been at university with me and then had proceeded to not come back. Right? Because she got married. Maybe I should have done that. Yeah. And so I was having a twofold struggle of, there's nothing here for me because there's nobody else here like me. Are they going to like cater an entire program just for me as an individual? You understand? Like, and then as the years progressed and the members of the younger generation, well, not younger generation, but the younger people began to age and somewhat straddle my age bracket. Somewhat. Like, we're talking about within the last 5 years. 5-6 years. Whether the age
gap doesn't seem as wide.
Yeah. And it's not just about the gap, but like the point in life, right, has not seemed as wide. I have been hoping that, okay, there are more of us now. There are actually young people here to cater to design programs and plan for. And
nothing.
It's still not happening. So my personal issues have been with being in the and I should also mention that I've worked for the organization. That's a whole other ballpark.
Yeah.
And I don't think, like, at the point in time where I worked for the organization, I did not have issues with administration. My issues mostly lied with coworkers.
Okay.
And can I say what I was doing? Like, would
that'd sell you out?
Would it?
Yeah.
Okay. But like, basically, it was we were in a particular role where it was critical for us to be Christ-like. Like, there would have been long-term, possibly life-changing consequences for us not being Christ-like. And I saw, I didn't like, I'm not saying I saw like the results of their actions, but I saw coworkers who were not necessarily always behaving in Christ-like manners. And I mean, that's understandable, because you have
bad days, you have bad moments, you have weak moments, and that's we're not saying that you're not allowed to.
Yeah, but when it is reoccurring, and you've seen the same patterns and behaviors from the same people, this is what, 7-8 years later, there's a problem.
There's a problem.
Yeah,
and I think that is my biggest issue. I don't want, like, we human, and I'm not expecting anything other than humanity. That's the wrong word. Humanness, I guess, and like imperfection. I'm not expecting that. My problem is like denying that there's a problem. That is the experience I've had. I want us to be like, yes, there is a problem. This is a problem. Let's be open and honest about it, because there is a problem. There is a problem with the organization on a whole because of like it doesn't matter where you go, the culture is the same, so it has to be an issue with the organization and not the individual people. But I want us to come clean and be like, this is an issue. We haven't figured out how to solve the issue, but instead of saying that, we're not going to just shove it under the carpet and pretend like it doesn't exist, because like we can see it exists, and that is the problem.
We can see the bump under the carpet.
Yeah, that and it's also not a real carpet; it's a see-through piece of plastic. We can see it, and that is my biggest issue. I felt like people think I'm stupid. They think the young people are stupid and they can't see what's going on, and like they're not going to feel like they're being pushed aside and ignored and their needs are not being met, and we just expected to like just sit back and be like, this is how we are saved, and that's what's most important.
When I'm an adult, I'll be catered to.
Yeah, like and that is like a big issue for me as well. A lot of us are appreciated and valued only as what we can offer in the future,
potentially
our potential, not as right now human beings who Jesus died to save and who need help in developing our relationship with him, like as individuals. Like I got no help whatsoever from this organization in developing my relationship with God. And like
I think they helped mash mine up.
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying like, yes, all of us have to have individual relationships with God. It's not supposed to be attached to our religion. It's not supposed to be attached to our denomination. It's not supposed to be attached to our local church. It's not supposed to be attached to our parents. It's not supposed to be attached to our school. I get that. But all of these are supposed to facilitate the development. And I feel like looking back, all those did was help mine, like give me issues. That's a lot of the struggle I've had has been rooted in not, and it's the thing is, it's not in the belief system of the religion. It's in the demonstration and the practices and the behaviors that you see, and the expectations that are common and rampant in the circle, that this is how you are supposed to be, and if this is not how you are, then something is wrong with you. And it's just this tying of church going and church participation to an individual relationship with God, that I think
that going and participation is a direct reflection of how good your relationship is.
Exactly. And it's in finding out that wait, like those two are not even like connected. Like my salvation has literally nothing to do with me attending church services. It's finding that out and realizing that like these same church services were the means of like so much of my anxiety and like my like dissatisfaction with where I was in my walk with God. Finding that out, and because of the pandemic, having to like step back and like not even intentionally miss those services, and realizing that this is when my relationship is flourishing, has been this eye-opening experience. And I can only imagine that this is what a lot of young people have been experiencing when they leave the organization. And it's in a sense frustrating to understand that like if I were to ever be open about that I would be looked down upon by older generations who believe that going to church is the only way that you're going to be saved.
I couldn't say what my thought was.
I'm very good. I'm very proud of you. Yes, I'm very proud of you for not saying it. I have not had as much exposure as TJ has to the organization. I haven't worked for them. I wasn't born in one of their hospitals, but like largely most of my experience has been shaped by the education system. And it wasn't like primary school was fine. I was oblivious and ignorant, and mid-secondary school was when I started to become aware of like, oh, these are people who profess to be Christians. Oh, these are people who are not behaving like people who profess to be Christians usually behave, or you expect them to behave. These people don't seem to care about other people. These people don't seem to love other people. These people are kind of behaving the opposite of what the biblical Christian is described as. Maybe there's something wrong here. Maybe there's something wrong here. And so that experience was jarring for me as well. It largely happened at university, like like TJ was saying. I don't know that we could compare our experiences. I don't know that I could say that I had more negative personal experiences, but I know that there were a lot, and like it just opened my eyes to, like, I'm still very emotional about it. Like when I think about the things that was said to me, the things that the and like it wasn't me alone. It wasn't me alone. The way a lot of us were treated, it's so upsetting to me that this is the experience that people have of Christianity. Yeah. Like there were a lot of non-Christians who had the same experiences, and I'm like, if this is their first experience with Christianity, like, I will not blame them for not wanting to be a part of this. This is
if we who were born into it are like the same, right? I don't want this. Well, how do we expect other people?
So it was heartbreaking. It was and I think that's the difference between TJ and I. I'm still heartbroken over it, over my coming to know the truth, my realization of things are not what I thought they were. Things are not how they are supposed to be. I'm still very heartbroken over it. And she's like, I've been new.
I think you being the last child, you were sheltered from something. There were conversations that were had in my presence. I don't know that it was like deliberately, but just as an older sibling, there were certain things that were said in passing, things that were said in conversations to me, with me, that like raised red flags for me. Possibly even before I went to university. But yeah, no. But certain things were said, and like it was not even necessarily like bad things. It was just like conversations about what was happening, what was going on. And I was like, this does not match up with what we profess, what we claim. And I think it, like, you could simply simplify it as there's a disconnect between Christ and the Christianity.
Definitely.
And so over the years, as I began to see it, and I wrote like during my university years, I was very, very anti our denomination. Not that I was anti-denomination, but I was very
Vocal?
It wasn't quite vocal, because it was like I wasn't speaking. I guess that's still vocal. But I used to write Facebook think pieces in Facebook notes about issues and challenges I was having with the organization and stuff like that. And I think one of the things I wrote about specifically was that we give more importance to our policies and procedures than people. And I think that is at the heart of the challenge you are having with a lot of what you want to see done. A lot of what you think, well, not you think, a lot of what the Bible talks about as being important as Christians. And I think we are the organization, not we. I think the organization tends to be sidetracked sometimes by having to follow, not that we shouldn't follow policy. I think following policy is very, very important. But I think at the end of the day, the well-being of people, your people, some people who are not even your people, should always be more important. I feel like the well-being of people should come first. As long as there are no legal implications, I think we put our people first. And sometimes even when there are legal implications, right?
Let's deal with them, but let's take care of
our people. Like, let's make sure our people are okay. So yeah, that's my heart.
This is not relevant, but that I think that needs to extend to not like to that that also explains our denomination's approach to mental health. In the sense that, like, I think it's also, as where we stand, there's also a cultural implication that is not just the religion. There's also
cultural stigma,
right? But there's just no regard for people and their well-being, and that's whether it's physical well-being, whether it's mental well-being. I don't know if it's because it's uncomfortable, or like people, like the organization just genuinely thinks it's not important.
And I think you see that, like, having been someone who has worked for the organization, I think you see that very clearly in how they treat their workers. And I have a friend who's currently trying to get out of working for the system, and like you saying, like, there's in her case, like, a large chunk of it, outside of other aspects of frustration, a large chunk of it is that her mental well-being is not in the best place being in that position. And so, and I think like you rightly saying, outside of because, like, we could be the ones to change the cultural expectations and the cultural stigmas. Like, if we as an organization decide we're going to push this as a campaign, we're going to promote this, we're going to encourage our members and our workers and everybody involved to, like, go for this, then there will be a shift. But
that's clearly not important. It's clearly not important. It's not on the agenda. And that's,
if you want to know what is on the agenda,
that's what I don't understand. I don't know what's more important than people. I have not been able to understand. Yeah. But like I'm hurt and I'm sad, and like I don't know that it'll ever be different. And that's, to me, that's the saddest part. That I do not predict a change. I do not predict one of those revolutions and yeah.
Are you saying that we guillotine people?
Not that kind of revolution. No, thank you. No, thank you. Yeah, I'm.
But I think you are, like, with the weight of, even, like, the weight of your emotion is not, like, I'm not saying that's a good thing, right? Because I don't think God wants you to be sad and heartbroken, especially not over a religious organization. But I think it also keeps you in a good place. Like, you're not like me, who's apathetic. You are, I don't know if you're hopeful, but, like,
No.
you're not, what is the word? You're still ready to work. Even if it's not necessarily for them or with them, you're still ready to get what you want to see done. And I can't speak for other people, but I feel like I sense sometimes that when a lot of young people get to the point you're at, they just wash their hands of the situation and they're like, I'm done, and they just move on. And you get one of three things where they either just completely distance themselves from the practices and the belief system of the organization. You get those who are like me, where they're like, I still maintain the beliefs, but I still want to be distanced from the organization.
Mm.
And then you have the third party who are like, well, there's maybe a third and a fourth. The third one who are like, this system did not work for me. Let me see if I can find another system that works for me.
Okay.
And then you have the fourth who are like, I don't want anything to do with religion. I don't want anything to do with anything. Down with church and religion, and in some instances it's even down with spirituality. Because some of them, like the first group, they maintain their spiritual life. They maintain a connection with God. They maintain a relationship with God. But then you get those who like,
this has been a terrible experience. I don't
this
want
has
to
hurt me. I don't want to have a repeat of this. I want nothing to do with this. If these are people who worship God, I don't want anything to do with God.
No. And that's so tragic to me. That's so tragic to me that, like, to have that kind of influence over whether people leave or not, and not treat it with awe.
Not be mindful of it.
Yeah, and just be so careless and reckless. I've
heard it multiple times. Like they're like, you're not in church for people, you're in church for God. But a large part of staying in any type of community has to do with how you are treated. And when you feel welcomed, when you feel like there's fellowship, when you feel like there's community, you are more likely to stay.
The only reason we go to churches for the fellowship and for the exchange of ideas, right? We could exchange ideas at home. We've been doing that. Like, if you're not getting the fellowship, what is the point? What is the point? Yeah. And like I feel like, honestly, I've had more growth and development
in the last year
when I've not been attending church services because of the pandemic than I had attending them. Like, church service days used to be so hectic. Those were the days I didn't used to do my devotion because I'm rushing out of the house. I used to be so stressed, so on edge, so just not having a good day. And now, like, this is one of my favorite days. Like, I wake up when I'm ready, although I kind of do that every day. But yeah, I get to spend time, studying the Bible, and fellowshipping with my sister. Yeah.
Amen.
It's a different experience, and I think that if only church services could hone that in, could provide that to other people, I think we'd be heading in the right direction. But I don't know that. I'm not expecting it. I've gotten to the point where I'm like, I'm not hopeful. I don't think that this is going to happen in my lifetime. But that it still makes me sad.
And like you said, it would not happen in your lifetime. And I'm like that's not like, because like in our lifetime, I'm anticipating that we'll see a new generation come into leadership. But like, I don't think that one generation is enough to change an entire situation.
It's a system,
right? And the second part is that with so many of the younger generations leaving, will there be any leadership left?
Yeah. And my biggest challenge has been that I don't think the leaders know what's happening. I think they've been so focused on everything else that they're not seeing the exodus happening right before their eyes. There's just, if they're seeing it, they're ignoring it intentionally. They're like,
denial.
Welp.
In denial. Because this thing, like, young people have been leaving, like, for the entire history of the organization, we've had young people leaving. Like, have you had young people leaving in droves? Like, and it's like, there's this norm, right? Where people leave as young people, they go out, and then they eventually come back. These young people are not coming back.
They're not coming back. They're not coming back at all. Yeah.
So I don't know. But I'm proud of you because you have made the decision that you are going to be the change that you want to see. And I'm gonna put my mouth in, and I'm gonna support you.
Man,
thank you. I give you my little money. Once I have money, I'll support your ventures and your efforts. Because I think if I don't want to say collectively, but like if we get a couple of people who make that decision to do something about the change they want to see, where they who want to live as Christians, like who want to do the things that the Bible calls us to do as Christians, then I think, in a sense, we could have that revolution. It would be one from the inside.
That's the only way it's going to happen. It's not going to come from the higher ups. I've accepted that. I've acknowledged that. It has to come from the individuals. Okay, so wow, we did another 30 minutes, and I don't think there's much cutting out to do.
Check it out. There might be some lulls.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we do we need to summarize this one? I think this one was more put together and cohesive. So yeah, so this was our take on our difficulties with organized religion, specifically our denomination. Let us know if you have any advice, or if you're dealing with something similar, how are you coping? We'd love to hear from you. And yeah, this has been What Shall We Say to These Things side conversation.
I'm TJ.
And I'm MJ.
Until next time, we're
out.
out.